All right, everybody. How's it going out there? Welcome to After the Cast Live. Hopefully, everybody's doing all right tonight. We're going to have an incredible show. We're going to talk about our previous episode that we did, episode 41 with Jack Bushong, who was the National Weather Service radar operator in Muskegon during the March 8th, 1994 UFO incident that happened way back when, and with 300 witnesses and all kinds of good stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my lovely co-host and wife, Michelle. Hey,
Hi,
Michelle.
everyone.
How is it going tonight? What's that chat look like? Anything happening in chat yet?
No, nothing yet.
Kind of quiet. So for people watching, welcome. If you're watching later, thanks for joining us. So let's go ahead and get things started here a little bit. One of the first things I want to do is talk about a serious announcement here with episode 3 called Body in Bags of Unsolved Mysteries. And what I didn't know until I saw that episode was that I work with one of the people who is the brother-in-law of the young man who was murdered here in Michigan. Really strange coincidence, but I talked with the person that I work with and asked them if our listeners, could possibly help out and provide any information. So one of the things I want to do is put this information up right here. The police are looking for this woman. Her name is Tammy Renee Williams. And if you guys can contact 1-877-WANT-2 or go to unsolved.com, there is a $10,000 reward for information leading to her capture. So if you can help out and help the family, watch that episode and you will see what I'm talking about with what happened. It is crazy.
Yeah, it was the murder in River Rouge. So
yes,
season 3, episode 3.
Hey, okay, so it looks like we got some people here. So we got Coach is in the house.
Hey, Coach.
And
hi, Lisa
Bowden or Bowden. So welcome. Good to see you. All right, so tonight we're gonna have some crazy stuff going on. We're going to be talking to a lot of people, and we're going to dive deep into this 1994 UFO situation here in Michigan. Now, the March 8th situation is getting very, very famous, but there was so many other UFO things going on that during that time, the month of March was on fire.
Well, the month of March in 94.
Yeah.
So both the year and the month.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring on our panel and let's have a little chat with them. So coming up first, we have Guy Merritt. Guy, how's it going?
Great intro, Guy.
Oh, man, I explained to you in our little green room before going live that I've got this baby Chihuahua running around and my wife is absent. So I don't know how much intelligent input. Well, I don't provide that very often anyway, but I don't know how well I'm going to
sure
be able to contribute because I got to chase him around the house because the old dog's chasing him, cat's chasing him. He's trying to bite them. So it should be a lot of fun. So,
yep.
But I'm here.
Well, that's okay. We got 3 cats that run through here like a herd of wild animals. So
I've had a lot of cats, but
yeah, it's crazy. All right. So Guy, we got you on, and then coming back with us is Burton from Lost in the Dark and Follow the Reaper. Burton, what's going on, man?
Not much. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome back, man. It's good to have you on for this deep dive. And I gave these guys an assignment, like the teacher that I am, to listen to our episode with Jack Bushong and come up with some I don't know. I don't want to say come up with some information, but what kind of things did you pull out of that interview that we can talk about and kind of dissect more? So, who wants to take the first chat? Who wants to start talking?
You can go ahead, Guy, if you like.
Actually, this reminds me of high school, Burton. I was going to say, I
Pass the buck.
I didn't make a lot of notes. I thought what I thought was really good about it. A couple things that I can think of, and I enjoyed it. Didn't sit and make a lot of notes. I thought it was great that he explained how the radar worked at great length for stupid people like me, because I know nothing about radar really, and that was instructive and informative, and it was interesting to understand that the particular model or whatever that he, if I understood this correctly, that he had, which I think he said they don't have now, he could actually target this thing and stop the radar from tracking. I mean, he could point it at this thing and keep it on it so that he could really mess around and get a good idea of its size and what it was doing. And it was fascinating. And, I learned something about radar, and Jack struck me as he's extremely cautious, which you have to be. But at the same time, I was thinking about this prior to the show. I'm walking around the kitchen, making some coffee. And of course, you guys know my story, and it's extremely odd. It's got some really odd features. I can't even believe this stuff happened in my life. But it's, my thought was, if something is clearly, if the radar is bouncing off of it in such a way as, it's metallic, he said that these really powerful pings or whatever he called them, it was obviously a metallic object and really large, very much like an airliner. And it only has to go, for me, 72,000 miles an hour one time, right? And if it does that, there's two things it can be. And one is the U.S. government's, I mean, I don't want to say light years, but way, 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 way ahead of anything that we would have dreamed of, right? And they're doing this stuff all over the planet, like, Greenland and wherever, because I see these everywhere. Or it's absolutely, this is something created intelligently by non-21st century humans. It's either, and under that's a whole list of, a parallel universe, a different timeline, aliens that evolved as kind of as we did on another planet, but much earlier. I mean, there's not a lot of things this can be. I mean, he mentioned that he was going to do a paper in which he talked about what it can't be, right? And that's a great way to go about it. But but really, I don't know. As the elephant in the room to me is obviously there's nothing this can be that we can explain in terms of our technology. And I see people fighting this. They're fighting it. It's like, I just can't go there. I just can't go there. And I mean, come on, what other answer is there? It's something incredibly esoteric, and it's built by some other form of intelligence. That's kind of like the only thing for me. I'm not saying this is the way it is. I don't like preachy people, and I sound that way. But I'm saying for me, that's kind of like, what other answer is there? It's great to go, well, it can't be this and it can't be that. We all know that there's nothing it can be that can go 72,000 miles an hour. It's intelligently constructed. It's big, unless the United States is, not light years, but way, 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 way ahead of what we think they are. Or it's from somewhere, some other kind of intelligence, some other being constructed it from a different timeline, a parallel universe, another planet. You can pick from all those things, but it's something really odd. With that, I conclude my sermon and I passed the conch over to Burton, who I called Barry during the entire last half.
Well, that's okay, man. Just real quick, want to give a shout out to Amy, who has joined us. She says she is from Georgia, but formerly from Kalamazoo. So, hey, Amy, did you happen to be on Western Michigan during 1994? It'd be interesting to hear any of your comments or stories about that time if you were there. So Burton, man, jump on in.
Well,
What's going on?
One of the things that I definitely wanted to ask you directly about, just because I agree with Guy, it was really cool to hear him talk about all the radar stuff and explain it in, like he said, it in a way that that pretty much anybody can easily understand it. That was really helpful and kind of helped paint a picture of what happened that night. Now, one thing that he did say was, God, I want to say it was, I think he said at one point he saw an object going at like 75 or 85,000 feet up.
Right.
Now, for you, because I don't know, what is like, how high can planes go? Like, what's the number? How abnormal is that?
That's pretty abnormal. From my knowledge of like commercial airliners, you might get the very big, powerful commercial airliners out there that can go up to about 45,000 feet or so.
Mhm.
Usually 42,000 feet if they're on a really long flight, like maybe to Australia or, someplace far where they just want to get up into that thin air and just, haul butt as fast as they can. But yeah, 85,000 feet is very, very bizarre. And what I found interesting about that number is that was the number, or at least it was 80,000 or 85,000 that Kevin Day, the radar operator on the Aegis cruiser during the Nimitz, all that Nimitz stuff going on, he said he would see these things show up in the radar about 85,000 feet. In a couple seconds, they would fall down to, surface level and just stop. So that number is very interesting for him to come up with.
That is, yeah. Okay. So that gives me a better idea. And I think, and he said too that, like, I don't think he said he saw it fall that fast, but like go up that fast, like in the split second. I mean, that's no, that's crazy. It's hard to know exactly what to make of that.
What does that?
Yeah. I also found it, I really enjoyed listening to him talk about how his experience with filming and with Netflix, and about how he's like, I sat there and gave them hours and hours of interview and they managed to chop it all up and make me look good. He was really happy with the final product and everything. And that's something that when I was watching the show initially, I didn't like totally pick up on because of the way it's edited together. But it sounds like when I was listening to the interview, he wasn't even aware of like the whole reverse waterfall situation until like a long time later, which like that was really interesting to me, because like they kind of, like the way they put it in the show, it kind of seemed like everybody knew at the time and stuff like that. But and that whole situation, and then how he was able to verify that with actual charts of where the lake was frozen and not frozen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the initial thing I texted you a couple of weeks ago when we all watched this episode. I was like, there's like real good data in this episode, like that you don't really see a lot in any of these other shows typically.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what really blew my mind about it. So hearing him really dissect all that, and then how he explained his experience with, because in the Netflix show, they did kind of sidestep a narrative of like they came down on him to keep him quiet, and he was like, that's not, they made it seem a little bit more conspiratorial than it actually was. So really, like, that whole behind the scenes look on it all was absolutely fascinating. I loved it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And one of the things that I was pointing out, and both of you guys kind of hit on it, was the understanding of the radar. And then I needed to point out a little bit about how the media, and by media, I mean like movies and everything you see about when it comes to radar, you see a flat radar screen with this thing sweeping around, right?
Yeah, your description of that, and then how he described, like, you two going back and forth on that, I was like, it clicked in my head. I'd never thought of it that way before.
And I put images up on the YouTube version of the radar on that episode, and that comes directly from his radar operator's handbook that he sent me. And so he scanned those pages in, and so when you see them flip, it's the different shapes of the radar beam. So like he was saying, the weather radar beam is very circular and very cone shaped, but you look at aviation radar and it's very oblong. It's got that weird oblong feature to it. And that's so they can track the rate, like the altitude of these aircraft. They want to know who's in what section of the sky all the time. Whereas with the radar of the weather radar, they want to know where storms are and things like that, what's moving in those clouds and all that. And they can detect, obviously aircraft and stuff, because when he was bored, that's what he spent his time doing.
He said something, I don't want to interrupt, but we're on the radar thing. I don't want to lose this thought. One thing I found really interesting, and doesn't surprise me based on some personal experiences that are strange. I don't recall, and I'm hoping you can kind of explain it. I don't recall how he said it happened, but there was something that happened with the radar that suggested to him they knew that he was looking at them, which is a huge thing. I mean,
right. Yeah. So like they were playing with the radar, or within the radar beam. So one of the things that he could do with that radar is, like, everybody sees a picture of like Doppler radar because everybody's used to that image in the media. And that's the radar dish that's spinning around, and constantly spinning. So whenever anybody thinks of radar, it's that dish going around. And then you got that wedge, right? You got that wedge going around the screen, right? Kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's spinning in a circle, right? Well, what he could do with the weather radar is stop that dish from spinning and kind of point it in one direction, so that area was being radiated the whole time, so he could look in at what's going on in that section. And he could also lift it and lower it, so he could take that cone and move it either higher up in the sky or lower in the sky. So just think about a flashlight. If you have a craft that is far away from you and up high, you'll probably catch it in that beam far away. But if it's up high and close to that beam, you're going to have to tilt that dish. Now, what these things were doing is, when he put them in the radar beam, they were in the shape of a triangle. And one little craft would be right at the edge of the one beam. And then he would move the beam. And then the one craft would jump to the edge of that beam, like almost instantaneously. And then the two other craft followed along and stayed in that beam, in that triangular shape. And he played with them. He would move the beam again and they would jump back into that beam. And he said the one that was in the middle, if you look at a triangle, the one that would be like the apex of that triangle, he said that one was usually about 6,000 feet higher. So it gave the impression that the triangle was standing up on its point. And then the two other points were, more like this. So where my two index fingers are coming together there, that would be one craft. And then my fingernails would be two craft. And then what ended up happening is that one in the middle lowered down. And so that they were at the same altitude. And that's when all those other crafts showed up. So crazy maneuvers and things going on with that. So what are you guys' thoughts?
I mean, I can't remember I can't remember exactly what he said about this, but I feel like he said something to the degree of, like, these things, an object has to be a certain size in order to even be seen, right? Yeah. So, like, and he said when he saw it on radar, his first initial thought was plane, right? So, yeah. I mean, if it's an object, I guess even then, if there were some, like, completely terrestrial normal explanation for this, it would still have to be an object the size of an airplane. at least. And I mean, yeah, that
And,
kind of
going,
really
72,000 miles an hour.
yeah, it kind of
Right.
I mean,
starts
what?
to limit.
And he talked about he was very meticulous and did an excellent job in explaining how you could discriminate this, that it could not be ground clutter,
Yes.
that it could not be radar jamming.
Yep.
I mean, he went point by point and explained, how he concluded what he concluded. And that was, I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't know if he used this word, but he basically, was suggesting that it was something at least anomalous and absolutely none of, like I said, not ground clutter, not radar jamming. And he explained very well, although I can't, spew back how he explained it, but he convinced me that the radar wasn't being jammed. It wasn't ground clutter. I mean, the guys, how do you not trust and believe this guy? That for people that are skeptical,
Yeah. The phrase ground clutter is insulting to him. You can tell from the interview.
Yeah,
The fact that they even use that phrase.
Ground clutter is just this mess of crap that's small and it moves away fast. And I think he said, it kind of disappears. It's, he obviously, he knew it wasn't ground clutter. And I don't remember how I don't remember his explanation, as I said, but yeah, he seemed annoyed with he seemed to view this stuff. It seemed that he was suggesting that anybody that knows radar knows these explanations are preposterous. All right. So
That's the exact same impression I got too.
Yeah. Well, what they tried to do was link that to his competency when he had been a weather radar operator for, what do you say, 5 years that he was working on that radar system. And so in ground clutter just means that the radar is, for whatever reason, the radar is maybe hitting an inversion layer up in the atmosphere and bending the radar beam down, and it's hitting buildings and trees and stuff.
right.
So that radar beam, it's really strange, but it can find things on the ground and then report that back. But he knew all of that stuff. Those guys are top notch, trained in all of that stuff. And, he knew exactly what he was doing. Then they started playing the games. And this is what they don't talk about in Unsolved Mysteries, was the intern thing. Like all of a sudden, because he's an intern, he didn't know what he was talking about.
Exactly. They tried to diminish his status so that, you can ignore this guy. He just gets coffee and donuts. No, this guy, he's the guy that just took the special course on the radar. Okay. I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that he was I think the only guy there that had, and I may be misspeaking, I think he said he was the only person on their staff that had taken this, or at least he'd just done this specialized radar training.
Mhm.
And, the fact that he was a quote intern is really kind of a red herring. It's a way, I think, it's an off ramp. I used that phrase in the group about something else. It's an off ramp for people to say, I don't want to believe this stuff. So, that's what's wrong. He's an intern. He doesn't know what he's doing. Right.
Yeah. So just a quick moment, Michelle, how's that chat room looking?
Well, a couple things. Amy says that she was in Kalamazoo, but doesn't recall this. And that's kind of like us on the east side of the state. It kind of proves who read the newspaper back then and who didn't, because they wouldn't have talked about it on 2, 4, and 7. They were putting it into the newspaper, except for Larry King Live. And so I don't even remember anything, and I would have been old enough. I was 19 going on 20 when all of this went down.
It was on the national television news big time. It was on CBS Evening News, ABC World News Tonight, because I saw it on the news and went, man, that's weird. So,
but was it very quiet in Michigan? Did they, other than the papers, did you notice anything on local?
It was on the news because I'd seen it. I mean, I'd seen it on the news for a couple of nights and was, but I thought it was all on the west side of the state. That's why I was shocked that on, the 18th, I drove right underneath this huge thing. If you see me looking around, I'm chasing a puppy. So he's
So-
scampering about. But yeah, it was covered. That's one of the things that shocked me was, especially back then, you didn't hear this stuff on the national news. I was like, but they were kind of shafted because I've got an article that I've shared in the group that I got from the Flint Journal, and it was seen by the police, pillars of the community, clergy, businessmen, people that they couldn't. Well, the National Radar Service weather guy, this fellow named Jack Bushong, they were kind of shafted because they could, there was so many people had seen it, and there was so much, there were so many independent witnesses of high quality that it was on these major television news things.
Well, and that's what Barry brought up in chat. Over 300 people called in to 911. That night over the course of, what was it, 40 or 42 counties over the state of Michigan.
Yeah, that's shocking. I didn't know.
And so, but like in the episode, besides the fact that you've got, everyday civilians, you also had the one police officer that went on film. You've got two airline pilots flying into O'Hare that also wouldn't go on record with their name or the airline carrier.
Those guys are always drunk, I mean, yeah, I'm being facetious. I mean, these are some great. That's what I said. Great quality witnesses.
Yep. So, Michelle, what else did Amy have to say in her chat?
Amy talks about she did visit a house in Allegan in '96 that had a pyramid in the backyard where the woman had claimed to communicate with beings.
Oh, well, that's very interesting.
Well, you figure pyramids, conductors on top. You figure the shape of a triangle.
Right back.
Yeah. That's well, Michelle, what before I jump into one of my observations that I found outside of the interview, what did you kind of pick up on?
Which part? I'm still fascinated and confused about the connection to the Great Lakes. I realize that we are the largest bodies of fresh water, but it's the usage of what that water truly is being used for, and the eyewitness account from the campers, the couple that were camping that saw the mile high waterfall being drawn into the craft. So, wishing we could talk to them.
Man, I got to tell you, I followed this whole thing for years and years and years because of my involvement with it. And I had never heard that. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was actually just about to ask, has anybody, before this Unsolved Mysteries and everything, had anybody ever heard of a UFO doing that before?
No.
Guy, didn't you in that one video that you sent?
I uploaded 2 clips into the Facebook group.
Okay.
I got like almost a terabyte of documentaries. This thing sent me on a quest of my own experiences, and I save them. I got a library of them, and I immediately thought of an episode in Australia where a bunch of very good witnesses, people like in their 60s, business people, they watched this craft hover over a lake and do something quite similar. I mean, it wasn't identical, but sucked water up, then it dropped it down, and then I found another one. So I actually uploaded 2, a lake in Peru where Chase Kloweski, who's a UFO investigator from the States, went down to Peru to just study UFOs down there because they're more open about it. And she spoke to this mayor who said, "You got to help us with this lake." I uploaded that video because he swore that there was a huge lake outside their town, and this is the mayor of the town, and he said that these UFOs sucked all the water out of it, and he was very matter of fact about it, and couldn't even believe that she looked quizzical or something, and he said, "Well, don't you have UFOs in the United States?" I mean, down there in South America in particular, that these things exist are kind of an accepted thing, right? Brazil and Peru are really good about it. But yeah, there's been other cases, but I had followed this. I'd read everything I could read, and I'd never heard about these campers seeing this thing 6,000 feet. I'm like, and what's it doing with the water? I mean, it's crazy. So I don't know.
Yeah, I speculate on that. And the only thing I can think of is that it would be something for a cooling of their propulsion systems,
Exactly.
maybe.
I thought that's a good answer.
Considering March being very cold and the lake is just about all frozen over except for one area. You have no ships in the water, so it's probably very clean, very cold, right on the edge of that freezing point. And then these crafts start showing up to take the water. And it may be something that has to be just at the right temperature and might have something to do with March.
Well, he did mention that it was a perfectly clear night and it was like 21 degrees outside. So we have all that really good data. That's very helpful. I have in the time of like Guy watching documentaries and TV shows, listening to Coast AM and all that over the years, I have heard stories like this before. I don't have any that I could like. I can't remember where I've heard them or specific details, but I know I've heard this before. I'm gonna have to check out those video clips, Guy, because I'm curious. Because it sounds like it's all lakes, even though I can swear that I've heard this story before over an ocean as well. But it's all lakes, and I would wonder what time of year, because I mean, I don't know how much colder they get in South America than as they do it like up here and stuff, but I'd wonder if there's any sort of correlation between the time frames and temperatures. This is all stuff we could find out.
Good question.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, we've got Barry in chat. There was a case in Glen Arbor, Michigan, where the UFO hovered over a pond, and there's actually pictures. So he said that he just saw the story online within the last couple of weeks. So I wrote that down to investigate further.
Okay.
And that was just within the last 2 weeks that happened. So, that's very interesting. We'll have to look into that for sure, because
well, I mean, he said he saw it in the last 2 weeks. It might be an old, it's Halloween time. They post old stories. So
be a March story. Though.
It'd be interesting to see if it is a March story. You're right.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. Cause Glen Arbor, where is that?
I don't know.
It's somewhere.
I think it's on the west side of the state.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but yeah.
So, Michigan's a pretty big state, man.
Huge.
There's so many cities and stuff.
It's like four hours from the top to bottom, just the lower peninsula.
Yeah.
It's very big.
So let's see. Glen Arbor, it's Leelanau.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So
way up north there.
Yeah.
Up by Traverse City-ish.
Oh, I know what I was going to bring up to
Yes.
you guys. Not to interrupt, but I found this blew my mind kind of.
Thanks, Barry, by the way.
Yeah. Did you guys know I posted a picture, and of course I posted a picture that I found in the group that stunned me. It was exactly what I saw. But what stunned me more, in terms of this triangle above my head. But what stunned me was the number of people, and I should have counted it before I came on and did this, was the number of people that said same thing. I saw that too. Blah, blah, blah. There's like 20 people in there that said, a ton, close to 24 people that said, I saw the same thing over my house. I saw the same thing over a field across the street. I'm like, how common is this stuff? I mean, I'm getting away from Jack's segment there a little bit, but I was just kind of stunned that so many people just referencing something I did in the group. And I found this picture in some documentary I hadn't seen, right? This guy holds up this triangle and I'm going, dude, that's what was above my head. Exactly. Like 125 foot. And I posted it and all these people said, yeah, I saw that. And I'm like, my God, I think there's this conspiracy of silence because people fear being ridiculed. I'm just wacky enough. I don't know. I've always been big on the truth. And anyway, I'm getting tangential. Let's talk about Jack. And I just thought I was really shocked by the number of people that said, it just went on and on. And quite a few people, in my view, that said, I've seen the same thing over my house, across the street, wherever. I was like, damn, what are they? How is this not? But, if you talk about this openly, most people won't do it. I've always been really quirky. I was retired by the time I really started yapping about it. I wasn't a teacher at high school. I give you guys a tremendous amount of credit for the work you've done. And I'm not patronizing you for this YouTube thing. But I mean it for real, man. I've thought about it tonight. I was thinking, Wayne and Michelle have really put themselves out there, being an earth science teacher and an English teacher. I mean, man, I can't believe you did this, because most people, you're to be commended for your courage, because most people in those kind of positions will not talk about this kind of stuff. They won't do it. So anyway, here's this
thanks a lot, guy. We appreciate that. So you were the first one to come on, so you helped bring that truth forward a little bit.
Well, and I brought my mythology students into it just yesterday. They were working on their Norse mythology comic strips, and they were actually listening to the episode.
So cool. I love that. I love that. That is so cool. I wish you'd have been my teacher in high school.
So we got through the possum story. They left my room with visual images of Jack's foot on the back of a possum.
In one hand, he's got a mailbox, and under his foot's a possum. What kind of dance was that?
And then imagine opening your front door, being his friend's mom, and seeing this image in front of you.
Yeah, honey, there's a screaming man with a mailbox in one hand and a possum under his foot. There's something you don't see every day.
No, and I had I could not keep a straight face during the interview at all. I had to keep shutting the camera off.
Good story. Yeah, it was
fun. Just real quick, just so people know, we are currently also live streaming on Twitter, on our Twitter feed. You can find us there, and also in our Facebook group. You can find us live streaming there as well. So right now it seems like everything is working pretty well, and we will continue to do the live streams, not only on YouTube, but also Twitter and Facebook. So everybody that's watching, thank you very much. And it looks like Barry had something to add to his story. Michelle, what does he have to say?
He said that the story actually happened a long time ago. The guy just had the pictures developed. He heard the story within the last couple of weeks.
Still an interesting story, though, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Barry. We're going to definitely look into that and see what we can find out.
No, and I agree. Our Facebook user, aka Coach, who said that most people won't say anything because they've been called crazy for too long.
Yeah,
I figure I could be called worse. So,
yeah,
I float around YouTube and make comments under other people's videos, and I got called crazy a couple of times today. I mean, I don't respond. I don't interact with those people.
Well, they called Jack crazy. There's people attacking him on Twitter, which I find interesting, that, are saying that he's delusional. I mean, my God, he tracked these things for like 5 or 6 hours on radar with, as Barry said,
I need to say,
with the 300 witnesses, the police, going all around. I mean, it's crazy. Just what I don't.
Yeah. Jack is clearly schizophrenic. I've got a 4-year degree in psychology, and when he presents as, probably he's definitely on the schizophrenic spectrum. Come on, this guy is so grounded and so rooted in science, and so come on, and he's got the data. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the thing.
You can have your own ideas. You can't have your own facts, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So one of the things I wanted to point out from my observations and talking with Jack, and this is no joke, and Michelle can attest to this, that before I even started recording the interview, we probably talked for close to an hour just about weather, radar, flight simulator, all these things that we had in common. It was really, really strange. A love for aviation. And then next thing I know, an hour had gone by. And then when I hit the record button, it was, like a 3-hour show. And I knew it was going to be a long one. So that was, something that really surprised me. And after that interview, I think we talked for another half hour, and now we're talking on the phone quite a bit about things. Nice. And it's just the people that are contacting him and stuff. So I want to dig into that after the break, and some of the stuff that he's told me. So I have even more behind the scenes stuff to talk about that we didn't release. And there is some things that I was asked not to release, and I'm honoring that because we don't want any issues with anybody or causing any issues with Jack and
Well,
anything
I'm
else.
coming over to your house, man, and I've
I'll
got my
tell you what,
I got my syringe with the sodium pentothal.
I will tell you what, Guy, you talk about this thing being
yeah,
a wacky experience and stuff.
I got ideas,
yeah, I look at the people we've talked to so far and all those experiences and just the data we are collecting here. It's just really, I don't know. But anyways, before we go any further, in about 8 minutes, everybody, will be our 1 hour mark, and we're going to take about a 5-minute break at that point for people to get drinks, go to the bathroom, chase cats around. Right. So, but my observations, I already talked about one of them, and that was the way that the radar is understood by the media and how it is played out and everything else in the media and movies and stuff. So how it gives that false picture of how things work. So it kind of creates this false narrative. But one of the things, and Guy, thank you for this. I was watching a video on your website of the 2008 episode of UFO Hunters on the History Channel way back when, with Fred Burns, I think his name was, always wore the glasses.
I think it's Bill Burns. Yeah.
Bill Burns. Okay. Bill Burns. Yeah. And he had a little team, and they would go and investigate these, UFO areas and, these stories and look for evidence. Well, one of the things that they said, and I want to try to get a confirmation of this, but they said that the Aurora Borealis was very, very active that night of March 8th, 1994. Like people, that's why a lot of people were outside, because they were being attracted by the Aurora Borealis and wanting to see it. And that's how a lot of people saw these craft and started making their reports. And I wonder, can we confirm this? And is there a possible connection? Because when the Aurora Borealis is happening, that's a large amount of energy that is, it's solar particles coming from the sun hitting the atmosphere. And so, does that cause some kind of interference for whatever these craft are, making them visible? Do they need to exchange their water supply and their coolant at that time because they're, something is going on? I just thought it was amazing. The only thing I could find, and it was, I wrote here, according to a 2014 space.com article, there was amazing auroras in 1989 because of a massive solar storm that was happening at that time. What do you guys think about that? I mean, that's the only thing I could find. I couldn't get back to, or I couldn't find anything on 1994, but I found it very interesting. And now I'm looking at every little possible thing that,
I have an idea.
All right, let's go.
Teacher.
Yep, go for it.
No. I mean, that's definitely, I mean, there may be some sort of scientific thing as you suggested. And of course, me being a dumb guy who doesn't know science at all, I know the behavioral sciences, but that may make sense. Another thing that immediately I thought of is, when I drove my car underneath this triangle, which was right above the trees, maybe 125 foot in the air, I've thought very often lately that obviously this thing wanted me to see it. And an alternative answer to what you just said, and I'm not saying that what you said may not be the case, but I'm thinking maybe they thought the Aurora Borealis are out, people will be outside, and they wanted to be seen. Because these things, I've had a couple of experiences that are quite odd, and we all know about them. And believe me, you are not going to see these things unless they want you to see them. Okay, so that's an option too. Maybe they thought people will be out wanting to see the aurora borealis, and so let's put on a show. But just something that came to mind the minute you started talking. I was like, yeah, I wonder if it could be that. But I don't know. I don't know anything. No. So, but that's that would definitely be a really good thing, to look at and see if there's any, correlation between, a really great display of the aurora borealis and the appearance of these things. And like volcanoes erupt, and a lot of times people see them. I mean, what's that about? I don't know.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, Guy, for that. Burton, do you want to jump in real quick before we take our break?
Sure. No, I think you could be. I think that's definitely something to look into. That's kind of what I was just trying to do here, because I think there is a way to look up that information. But yeah, I totally think that it could have something to do with it. Why not high? Because doesn't that cause a little bit of extra radiation in the atmosphere and everything? So then why not? Like, why couldn't that have, I don't know, some sort of positive effect on a craft that we don't understand?
Right. Yeah, possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could, I've heard theories too of like they'll use things like aurora borealis or thunderstorms or just lots of big clouds and stuff to hide in and navigate and stuff like that. So, I think if we can find a way to confirm that, I think that would be another useful data point for sure.
Yep. That would definitely be an interesting feature. One more piece of data that you'd want to explore if that's the case. So,
yeah.
Yep. I agree. And I'm not sure how to pronounce this name. Ain Del Rio says, hola, from the channel Ain Del Rio, one Argentine in Germany. Well, welcome very much. We are glad to have you watching.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. I'm seeing that in the chat.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. Thank you very much.
Peace.
Glad to have you on board. AINE. Okay. Maybe it's Ain. All right. So
I wish my wife was
could
here.
Be Ani.
My wife calls tortillas tortillas. I swear.
Quesadillas.
She does.
Yeah. All right, Michelle, before we take this break, was there anything you wanted to throw out there?
No, just looking forward to a special guest or two.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody. I think what we're going to do here now is I'm going to go ahead and get ready for our break. We're going to take a 5-minute break so everybody can run to the bathroom, grab a new drink, make some coffee, whatever you need to do. And we're going to go for about another hour. And, we've been live for 50 minutes. Do you guys want to hang out for another 5 or so and then do the break, or you want to do it now? What do you guys feel like?
I'm good for whatever.
I'm easy. That's whatever you want to do. Seriously.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll take the break now. That way we can, get in there and see what's going on with this guest of ours. So, all right, I'm going to send everybody back to the green room. All right, Michelle, what do you think so far about this first half of the show? Everything going good?
I think that Guy is waiting to find out exactly who the special guest is.
Yeah, we got some stuff lined up here. So, very important stuff. All right.
And I need more coffee.
Yes. All right, everybody. We are going to take a break for 5 and enjoy the break. And we'll see you back in 5 minutes. Enjoy. There is 4 minutes left to this break. Three minutes left, everybody. Just 3 minutes. Two minutes left, everybody. Get ready. 2 minutes. One more minute and we are back. One more minute.
Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, coming to you from the glacial dumping grounds known as the Michigan Basin. I'm Michelle.
And I am Wayne.
And we are a Michigan-based husband and wife educator and podcasting duo that after having a UFO sighting in March of 2018, have started to examine UFOs and other paranormal.
All right, everybody, we're back. All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. So as we get ready to get things started here, again, thank you for watching live. If you're in the chat, thank you for joining us. Stephen, I see that you have shown up. That's awesome. Welcome, welcome. Well, if you guys can help us out, please share our channel with everybody that you can. We're trying to grow the YouTube side of things. Our podcast does pretty well. We're very happy with that, but we are trying to do something a little different. And if you like this format of show, please share us out. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget, hit that little bell so you get the notifications when we plan on going live. All right. And just so you guys know that what we do is every about 2 weeks, we release an audio podcast. And then the week following that, what we want to do is release and go live and talk about that released podcast and have various people come on. Burton and Guy are joining us for this one. It could be, different people or the same. I mean, it doesn't really matter. So definitely, this is kind of a format. We're going to review our stuff and then kind of go forward, do another podcast, release that. Thank you very much for that, for subscribing. And then, once again, we'll do another live. So, hopefully every weekend we are able to put some stuff out for you and talk with you. And this has been great so far. So very happy with the turnout. And let's go ahead and bring in my lovely co-host, Michelle. What do you think's going on around here?
A lot of craziness.
Absolutely.
I think back to our encounter, and my biggest regret was not having my phone in my hand. So I would have loved to have taken a video just to prove, have that hardcore proof, like the radar data that Jack had to confirm what all of those people calling into 911 that night.
Yeah.
Saw. It's like, the collaboration between the two, no denying it.
Well, what was interesting too was that he talked about that weather data basically being collected and scrubbed, or the company that was available out there, they collected the actual data feeds, and then that company went out of business. So the actual data is not available anymore. Right. But we kind of talked about places that might have it. And that's one of those behind the, behind the scenes kind of talking that we did. So some of the researching and snooping around I'm going to end up doing to see if we can find out more about what was going on. But let's bring in our other panelist for right now. And we have Burton. Welcome back, Burton.
Welcome. Thank you.
And then, of course, we are joined once again with Guy. How's it going, Guy?
It's hard to get rid of me, from what I can tell.
That's a good thing.
Episode 4, episode 14. I'm everywhere. It's disturbing.
Yep. So before we go any further, one thing I want to do is, again, reiterate, we are trying to help one of my coworkers find the suspected murderer of his brother-in-law. And if you watch the episode of Unsolved Mysteries right after the one with Jack Bushong called Something in the Sky, you'll see an Unsolved Mysteries show called Body in Bags, where a person here in Melvindale, Michigan, just right up the road from us, and I believe it was 2014. Michelle, do you know when that happened? 2018. No.
Yeah, 2018.
And he was murdered and disembodied into 3 parts, and then his body was disposed of in various bags along southbound I-75.
I want to just interject real quick. I did watch that. And
around Findlay, Ohio.
That was gruesome. Horrible.
Yeah,
it was. And then come to find out, okay, you want to talk about synchronicities and stuff. I was telling coworkers that we had Jack Bushong coming on, and that, we were going to interview him from Unsolved Mysteries. And somebody said, did you watch the episode after that? That was, one of the coaches at our school. And he's in that with his wife, who was the sister of the victim. So I work with the brother-in-law of the victim. And so they have asked us, and we, when I saw the plead from the father of the victim, and finding out he was a former military guy, I felt like, and I looked at Michelle, and Michelle looked at me kind of at the same time on the couch, and it was like, is there anything we can do? Can we help them in some way? Sure. We got the ear of like 30,000 people on our podcast. And then on our Facebook group, we have close to 7,000 people in that Facebook group. And somebody even responded on that Facebook group and said that they work with other members of the family. So I'm asking people to try to help out. And if you got any information on this person, this Tamara, or she goes by Tammy Renee Williams, contact 1-877-WANT-IT-2 or go to unsolved.com and put in your information. Now, since that show is aired, we were told by the family members that they have been getting all kinds of great information. So please keep up that information and getting it out there. Be on the lookout. This woman is psychotic, to say the least, to be able to do that to somebody, and probably armed and very dangerous. So,
well, and the U.S. Marshals are on her. It's maybe just one more tip that puts them even closer to catching her.
Wasn't this the gal? Doesn't she have a huge distinctive tattoo on her arm?
Yeah, it was roses.
I mean, if people go, not to interrupt you guys because you know all about it, but if you look up this woman's, I'm sure she would be easily found using Google or something. I mean, she's got this really huge distinctive tattoo on her arm, and I would encourage anybody to look at that picture because, man, that's a one of a kind and big. And
because they left off in the episode with her fleeing to New York, and then that's like the end of it for the time being.
Wow.
Yep. It's so once again, anybody that can provide any kind of information, again, call. I believe this number is to the U.S. Marshals. It's 1-877-WANT-IT-2, or you can just go to unsolved.com and add in, information there. Probably send an email or fill out a form. But again, the family, thanks you for any help. And remember that there is a $10,000 reward for information leading to her capture. So, that doesn't hurt either. But, we really want to help this family out. They need closure. They need to find this woman. She needs to be, punished in a court of law for what she did. So
she's dangerous, man.
And she's dangerous. These are the type of people that hook up with other people, and put on the smiley face, and God only knows if she's going to do this to somebody else we need to get her off the street. So, all right. So getting back into this, kind of waiting for one of our special guests to jump on, and we'll bring them on once we have them on board and confirmation. But what do we got here? So I have an idea. You can search a very, very good sensitive medium that can help. There's actually been some of that has actually helped. Yeah. So
Wayne, did you guys continue watching? How deep are you into the Unsolved season?
I know there was one that I watched a little bit of, which was the Las Vegas murder. Was he some type of a comedian? Or
yeah. He was like a wrestler guy, but he was just like he was just the most popular guy in Las Vegas, basically.
Yeah.
So you haven't happened to see the one yet about I can't remember the name of it, but it's about two Native American police officers that
the Navajo tribe.
Yes. Oh man,
I watched that one.
Yeah, that was crazy, man.
That took my breath away more than one time. I could not.
That was great, man.
Let's say we're gonna try to get one of those guys on.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing.
Can I be on? No, that was so impressive.
Yeah,
kind of like Jack in a different way. I mean, you can't mistrust these guys. I'm sorry, man.
Right. These
No way.
were basically, Navajo
That was
Rangers.
great, man. I was riveted, man.
Yeah.
I was riveted.
It's a great episode. Great season all around.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is. It is. Although the one about your friend who was the coach, man, that was upsetting. And
Yeah.
so it was like my wife and I watched it. And we were just like, man.
And what the heck is with the synchronicities of all this stuff, man? Why,
It is weird, man. That's
Really
it is so weird. So one of the things too I want to point out to everybody who's watching right now or will watch in the future is if you have a UFO or paranormal story you'd like to tell or share with us, you can contact us or just write about the show and you want to give us some hints, something we should change, something you like. Please feel free to email us at mi.ufo.podcast@gmail.com. And also, Burton has a podcast called Follow the Reaper, where he's looking for first and second hand true stories of the paranormal. And Burton, before we go today, make sure that you let everybody know where they can write you or send in their stories to you and what you would like to do that. So please remind me before we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now?
No, before we go.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even put some links in there. But all right, so I see that our special guest has arrived and is hanging out in the green room. And so we're just going to go ahead and bring him on. Michelle, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure?
Oh, absolutely.
Now you guys got to stop this. I've had a heart attack and a stroke. All right. You're right
fine.
over the top of this stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. So, Guy, are you ready?
I was ready at like 6:28.
Burton, are you ready? All right. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome Jack Bushong.
Let me get
Oh
this
my
right.
God.
There we go.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Hello, friend. How are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. Doing really well.
We can't have an episode talking about Jack and not have Jack. Come on.
Seems
Thank
reasonable.
you. Yeah. I thank you. Welcome. Thank you for welcoming me to your group. It's really awesome to be on a panel like this. Never thought I would see the day that this would happen.
Yeah.
I guess my life has pretty well changed since Unsolved Mysteries now. And I'm getting a lot of messages from people in Michigan and elsewhere that are both interested in what I saw, but mainly things that they've seen and things in West Michigan. It sounds like West Michigan is a really hotbed for activity. And what strikes me that's amazing is that they're matching up these stories but that people are seeing in West Michigan. And then when I asked my dad about a certain area, and I'm not going to mention it yet, or maybe not ever, I don't know if I should do that, something like that. But when I asked my dad about it, he said, yeah, I heard stories about this particular location too. And that he said he heard that many years ago, decades ago. And so it continues on. The people I just talked to said that they have seen things that were pretty remarkable, and they continue to see them. So it's a hotbed of activity right in this region.
Yeah. So
that's
Jack,
over the lakeshore of Lake Michigan.
I guess we could say that when you talked about enjoying your retirement, but now you have this new calling.
Yeah.
You're getting people contacting you, putting you right into that full like researcher role with the information you're getting from some people. And yeah, you don't want to put too much out there for various reasons.
Right.
But what else have you been hearing? Anybody coming forward from that 94, March 8th, 94, or like in Guy's case, March 18th or other sides of the state? I imagine you're being inundated.
Yeah, I'm being inundated, and I have a couple hundred messages I have to get through. Plus, I have tips coming from Unsolved Mysteries. They have tips that get logged in, and then they have emails along with it. So I have to go through all those. But a lot of them are saying, I mean, it's 100% positive. These people, enjoyed the show. They were positive. There were no, except on Twitter, just one. They were pretty well positive, and they believed the story and know something's going on. There was nobody trying to get in there and debunking it. And I myself, I mean, I really thought over the last, since 1994, that somebody would want to talk to me that was in the government or something like that, but nobody ever did. Nobody ever came up to me and wanted to talk about what I saw, because I got pretty good, really intense observational data from the radar that I would think somebody that would want to know about this technology would want to know how I viewed it, how I know that they were solid objects instead of like plasma balls or something like that. And the reason why is because, and I'll tell you, the weather radar, it measures the amount of reflected, radar waves. So, and we have to do that because we have to determine how heavy the rain is falling, right? So light, moderate, or heavy rain, or even see hail in there. And so we have markers for different types of objects. So we have another scope called the amplitude scope, or the A scope, and it shows for rain, it'll show, like a fuzzy line. Yes. Go ahead.
Hey, Jack, just real quick. I don't know what happened or changed from when you first came on, but your microphone has a very staticky kind of.
It might be right. It might be hitting my shirt. Yeah, I'll keep. Yeah.
I don't. It sounds almost like electronic interference of some kind.
It's
Really?
the aliens.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. It's not the aliens. I'm kidding.
It's not the aliens guy.
I'm joking. That was a rib. That was a joke.
All right. How do I sound now? I
Still
took the
doing it.
keyboard away.
It almost sounds like you're talking through a fan a little bit.
Really? Okay. You know what? I really feel bad. I have this brand new headphones, and it has a mic to it. I pulled the microphone off because I fell asleep with these headphones on, listening to music, and then now I can't find the mic. Of course, so
we were on the live with you when you took them out of the box.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's these nerdy scientists,
Yeah.
Oh, I fell asleep listening to music.
Yep.
All right, so Jack, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove you from the meet for a minute here, and go back into your settings and see if maybe something changed with your audio selection, or maybe you need to change it to your headset or something like that.
Okay.
And see if it like resets for you. So
let me just let me see if this works. I'll just pull the headphones out.
Okay.
And can you hear me now?
Yeah, but it still has that static to it. It's really bizarre.
Really?
I don't know.
All right. Well, then let me log out and come back in, see if that.
Yeah, sounds good. All right.
All right, we'll see you in a minute.
See you in a minute.
That
All right, guys.
That actually is kind of weird because there was two different microphones that he used.
Yeah.
And it was coming the same way through both. Haven't you guys had something weird like that before with another guest? Where
Yes.
okay, so
Yeah.
maybe,
Okay,
maybe the guy wasn't off.
The truth, I was only half joking.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say.
We on another show, I can tell you about my buddy on the East Coast on Martha's Vineyard, who's had a fleet of UFOs over his head, and the electronic weirdness we've had
Heard of that.
trying to communicate on the phone, like stuff disappearing and sparkling, and so
Oh yeah, it was God. That was okay. I think you talked about that on the episode with Wayne and Michelle, right?
I
Or
may
something?
have.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember this story. So
I may have, yeah. That's-
And
I
you
tend
would
to talk
think
a lot. So
you would think if anybody was going to have static tonight, it would be Wayne and I. The wind out here is kicking.
oh, it's crazy.
I think it's for all
Crazy.
four of us.
Is it?
Oh, no, I
okay,
had-
just across the
I-
state.
I had to I was a little bit late hopping on because I had to run around the corner to my parents' house. They're out of town. Grandma's there alone, and the gas grill blew off the deck. So I had to
Oh,
run
man.
over there and check on that real quick. And right in front of our house, our neighbor's tree fell right into our driveway earlier today. Big ass, like 30-foot tree.
Holy
Wow.
Oh, they were saying
All right.
60-mile-per-hour winds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It looks like Jack's back. Let's go ahead and check the audio here.
Try it out.
All right.
Okay. How do I sound now?
There we go.
All right. Good. Thank you.
I did it. Whatever you did.
Yep. Whatever you did, you're just a little quiet. So I don't know if maybe it's just because you're a little bit away from your mic, but other than that, sounds great.
Okay. So what I was going to say was that the story I heard about around Muskegon is something that's similar to what my dad. I just talked to him tonight when I read these messages, and he said he had heard similar things from 60 years ago. So, yeah, that's
crazy.
Yeah.
And is that like also from like the west side of the state of Michigan, roughly?
Yeah, that was in the west side. Generally the same area. I mean, pretty much the same spot. The only difference is that it's roughly some sand dunes that are no longer there. They were taken out by someplace. So some companies. So now it's just a pit, but the activity continues.
So, well,
we've had a lot of sand companies come in. That's generally been we get a lot of sand, so a lot of glass companies come in for the sand. They come and then they, but in this case, the activity that went along with this hill, even though they took the mountain away, the activity is continuing in that area.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But Burton, I want to throw this over to you. So here we have the featured star of episode 2, season 3 of Unsolved Mysteries, Something in the Sky. Is there any pressing questions that you wanted to ask him? Since I surprised you with bringing him on, was there something you wanted to ask?
Well, first of all, it's very nice to meet you, Jack.
Me too.
I absolutely adore. I've grown up with Unsolved Mysteries, and when I saw that episode, it blew my mind, and I had to text Wayne about it right away. And you were great on it. It was a great story, one I was not familiar with. Couldn't believe I wasn't familiar with it, considering how long I've been into this, growing up in Michigan my whole life and everything. But I mean, actually, like, I don't remember if this was mentioned in the podcast episode or in the Netflix episode or either of them. But Wayne, you brought up this thing earlier, and I was trying to look it up while we were on break really quick, trying to look up like past weather data for that day and everything. And Jack, do you remember anything about like Aurora Borealis happening that night in that part of the state or anything?
I never heard of anything. That was something I think the police mentioned. Maybe it could be Aurora Borealis, but that wouldn't give me the signatures on the radar that I saw.
Yeah. Oh, no. Not as an explanation for what you saw at all. Yeah.
And I have actually mentioned this. It was a flying tin can. It was a highly reflective object, solid object, up as high as 60,000 feet with nothing around it, just the craft or whatever it was, this spot, and it hovered there. And from what I looked at, we have, so it was obviously some kind of flying craft. Was it a balloon? It could be, but the balloon was going thousands of miles an hour, so I don't doubt it, But why would there be a balloon at that hour anyway, in the middle of the winter? But what I'm getting at is that it wasn't ground clutter, because I had the radar beam angled at such a height it couldn't be ground clutter. Ground clutter is when you have the beam it does follow the earth a little bit, and sometimes it hits an inversion and bounces down. Well, when you angle it like this, you're going up like this, you're gonna go right through that inversion like nothing. And I can wave the radar back up and down and back and forth and kind of search in a grid-like pattern, like with a flashlight, you're looking for something. And so it's unlike an air traffic control radar in that I have basically a cone-shaped, round beam going out, spreading out, getting bigger. And then, whereas the air traffic control radar takes it's got a big, large oval to take the entire sky in one sweep. Ours doesn't work that way. We have it kind of to focus in on a specific place. We need that. Now, we normally, in the old days, in the 70s, it's different now. But in the 70s with the analog radars, it was just stuck at 0.5 degrees above, horizon. Mm-hmm. And so we just shot out, close to the ground just to get, it going in automatic mode, going around and just getting the precipitation that you would see. And so now when we have to look at thunderstorms that could be active, severe, or lots of hail, we have to look for them by stopping the radar. I turn a knob, and then I crank. I stop, and then I can crank going side to side, and also up and down. And so I can see like a three-dimensional view, a cut through of a thunderstorm. Okay, so I can see, so in that way, the way I see hail is with that A scope I was talking about, which is the large waves. And the larger the wave, the heavier the rain. But at sometimes you get this like spike where it just needles off the graph. And that's when I'm seeing not liquid, but a solid. And so that's when I'm seeing hail. So if anybody remembers on the recording, I say it's spiking. So there's something pretty solid. Okay, so what I meant was the A scope was spiking. That means it's really something really solid. And that means basically it's a solid object, not liquid, not plasma, that's way up high at 12,000, 6,000, 12,000, 20,000, and up to as high as 55, 60,000 that I saw. So you have to like take away, when I try to research this myself, just kind of basically taking and looking over my notes, I did this research where I cut out what everything possibly it could be that I was looking at. Was it an inversion, like I keep hearing meteorologists say? No, absolutely not, because I raised the radar to a point where I was cutting through any inversion. So forget about that. It's not an inversion. Any meteorologist out there, I was not looking at an inversion that was bouncing the radar back. And even if I did, what I saw was not what the ground clutter would look like. You don't see one little spot moving along at either a slow, medium, or high rate of speed. You see just it sitting there. That's ground clutter. A tree, a building, they just sit there. They don't move. And you can't see them move. So and there was also clear air around it. I mean, I could see all around it, clear air. It was not on strings. it was a craft that was hovering there, and moving slowly, and I could see it move, and then darting, and I would wave. I had to keep it painted, and it. My scope at that time, in the old days, was like a phosphorus, where it's kind of like a glow-in-the-dark stuff, where the beam goes out and it shows on the screen, basically, as you see, if you saw that old black and white radar from the old days, it just kind of glows up, and then it just kind of sits there and then it fades away. Well, in order for me to actually see it, I had to keep waving it, otherwise it would dim away. If it was stationary and not moving, I still had to wave over it. So in that case, I did see them jump, because I kept waving, and I would see it jump from one spot to 20 miles away.
Well, Jack, before you jumped on here and joined us, one of the things that I was able to watch, thanks to Guy, was the UFO Hunters History Channel show back in 2008, where you were interviewed and talked about this experience with them way back when. And one of the things that they had mentioned, and I think this is why Burton wanted to ask you about this, was that in that show, they had stated that the Aurora Borealis was visible that night and very active.
Okay.
And I had just posited the question of, could there be a possible connection between Aurora Borealis and, seeing these craft, or, you're putting a lot of energy from the sun into, a massive solar storm is coming and hitting the atmosphere. Maybe it's affecting these craft in some way that they have to then, get water or whatever. I mean, just full of speculation. So, that I kind of had, proposed that out to the group, and, so that's, did you hear of anything that night about the Aurora?
Well, I was pointing the radar. Well, I went outside that night. I didn't see it myself. The only time I saw the Aurora Borealis is by going north up to Mackinac City and camping up in that area. I saw it twice up there, and we used to camp quite often. So, but it was rare that I would see. I saw it twice. So, and they're beautiful, but I just don't think the radar would pick up. That's too far away. We're talking about something that is visible, but is hundreds, thousands of miles away, I suppose. I don't know if the electromagnetic radiation from it can affect the radar, but I suppose it's possible. But I had the radar being pointed towards the south, away from the north, where you would see the Aurora Borealis. So, and also the police officer and Holly Graves were looking down towards the southwest, where they had moved to. So you were looking away from. You got your back to the Aurora, to the north, where the Aurora Borealis would be. It just like they were. Holly told me, and I asked her specifically. You say there it was like round, glowing, but could you see through it? Could you see? Did it look like plasma, or was there something underneath there? And she said no, there was a metallic structure underneath that. Metallic-looking structure that was shiny, reflective, and there. So, and that would correspond with the radar traces that I saw, with being basically a solid object, and not only just solid, but shiny metals. Solid, very reflective, very smooth. I mean, it didn't bounce off and scatter. It came right back like I was looking at a mirror, So,
Michelle, what do we got going on in the chat?
Well, what Barry had put out, and I would agree with this because of so many people and so many phone calls in. If the auroras were that bright during that time on March 8th, it would explain why so many people did see the craft, because they would have been outside to see the auroras.
That's kind of what I said.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would make sense. Not many people are going to be looking outside at those March 8th.
It's cold night.
Coldest year. You remember 1994 was an extremely cold year.
Mm-hmm. And also, Michelle, I think you said earlier, what was it, like 47 counties, over 300?
It was 40 or 42 counties had reportings from that day.
And I don't totally know for sure if it was accurate or not, but there was a moment in the Unsolved episode where it seemed to kind of like go over the western and middle portion of Michigan and put a bunch of dots down, suggesting that's where these reports were coming from, and they stretched fairly far north. So I almost wonder if that 2008 episode, some of those witnesses were way farther north, seeing that night, as opposed to more where in the Muskegon area.
Well, I think some of the sightings stretched all the way over even into like the Caseville and Port Austin area, which is at the Thumb.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right, Michelle, what does Steven say here?
Steven says that he wonders if the dune area that Jack was talking about is in between Holland and Grand Haven.
No, it's not.
No,
I
was more the area that the couple was camping in. What, Grand Haven?
Yeah, they were full south. And that's another thing, that there was actually, that's coincidence, is that there was a similar activity that, and I can't put it out yet because I don't know, but there was a coincidence between an observation down there and one that was up in the area I'm talking about at this sand dune. I really don't want to talk about it now because I don't want everybody going out there and, when it could be nothing, it could be an urban legend. I got to research to it. I don't want to cause any problems.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Guy.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump in with anything for Jack? Now you have an opportunity to talk to him. I kind of know where, if I was you, what I would be talking about, but what would you? Yeah.
Well, it's so bizarre, man. It's so strange. Jack seems like a very cautious guy, and so was I. I mean,
oh yeah.
I have a Bachelor of Science in psychology. Granted, it's a behavioral science, but I mean, still, I was trained in the scientific method, and I don't like to speculate, but just got a couple of questions, I guess, real quick. I mean, when we started the podcast, kind of the elephant in the room, as I put it, is the fact that you saw a structured object that appeared to be under intelligent control, going 72,000 miles an hour. And I don't know how much, my background is kind of weird. Like 8 days after, on March the 18th in Flint, a number of us drove our cars right under a huge triangular craft that was 125 foot above US 23. It was crazy and terrifying, really. I mean, it's a whole new level of terror. That's next level fear, believe me.
Right. And that's interesting because I watched an entire series on Netflix about UFOs last night. I went through the whole thing, and there were a couple instances about this football field sized triangular or maybe rectangular.
I saw that about 4 days ago.
Yeah. So and that's just crazy that you would see the same thing these people are seeing around the world. So it's
and it was March the 18th. I hadn't seen 23 years later. I tried to put this stuff out of my mind. I mean, I'm not going to get into everything that happened because it's way out. Mm-hmm. And I'm sort of alone with it. Well, not alone, but just some odd things happened. And particularly to some coworkers and also to two ladies carpooling 7 hours before at the same spot who had the identical stories. Two sets of women carpooling to different factories with crazy stories. One of these women was my best friend where I worked. And but I don't want to get into that. And everybody on, that's familiar with Wayne's podcast, Wayne and Michelle, they know what happened. So,
can you tell me? I'm sorry, where is this region that you saw this?
This happened Jack was about 3 miles south of Flint, Michigan, 3 or 4 miles. Okay. It was 5 a.m. I was at a kind of a crappy temp job. I generally had good jobs. I'd kind of fallen between the cracks, and I'd taken a job in a little factory down in New Hudson, which is near Brighton. I was only there about 5 weeks. Okay. But I'd seen an article in the Flint Journal the night before about a UFO being seen hovering above a house over Flint. And I'd never seen anything like that in the newspaper.
And by the way, Jack, I sent you that article because Guy had found it at the library and scanned it in. So I
was going to say too, I'd also seen, I was telling her earlier in the podcast, I mentioned back then I watched the national news, and like that week, CBS Evening News and, like ABC World News Tonight, they had the reports from the west side of the state. And that's where I thought these were, period. They were odd. I didn't know what to make of it. I wasn't a UFO person. So, I had an everyman's kind of interest in UFOs. I mean, I was a big fan of James Randi and these debunkers, and I thought, I'll believe that when I see it. Well, believe me, I was way too close to this huge ship. And I mean, it sounds crazy. I get it. I mean, and everybody wants proof, but I don't have it.
After I saw this, people started that I would have no idea. They never mentioned anything, about it. I never heard any rumors.
I know.
Family. Yeah. My father-in-law said he saw something once, and my stepsister described something.
Yeah.
And the one that my stepsister said, she was coming home from a night shift as a nurse when she was younger in the 80s. And she was at a stoplight in Muskegon, and she saw basically a flying saucer.
Wow.
And it was hovering over the car that was coming the other direction, stopped at the light.
Wow.
It was just the two of them at this lonely light in the middle of the night,
Right.
So, but it was hovering over this car, and she said she looked in the car to see if they even knew what was happening, and it didn't look like they had any idea that this thing was right above them.
Wow.
But she said that she looked at it, had like red and green lights kind of spiraling around, not blinking, not strobing like an aircraft, but kind of going around.
Going around, yeah.
Yeah, and then also it had what she said, the power source underneath the dome of yellow light, and then it took off to the side, just, and she said she saw a streak, and I kind of wondered because I heard a NASA scientist who was trying to explain these high-speed maneuvers, that whether these things were going in and out of dimensions, and I wondered that too, but when you see a streak like that, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is that they're going high speed?
Right.
That's what something high speed would look like.
My theory, and it's, worthless. I used to play with a drummer. I was a musician for years. Then I got a degree in psychology. As he used to say, opinions are like rear ends. Everybody's got one. Right. I mean, I'm guessing as much as anybody else, but my thing is, I don't think we're talking about one thing in every case. Yeah. I mean, I think there could be interdimensional craft. There could be craft that are from planets where beings evolved very much as we have over time and are just ahead of us. And, it could be a little bit of everything. So, I mean,
right.
But you make a very good point. That's a great observation, that there was a streak of light behind it, which sounds like a three-dimensional thing, kind of like it doesn't sound necessarily interdimensional,
Right. But that's what I was thinking. And now I wouldn't have been able to see that, I don't think, on the radar. Basically, and the way it moved is that as I waved it back and forth, and the way I was able to figure it out was that how fast it was going, is I pretty much waved it back and forth like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Minneapolis. I was going back and forth like a pendulum. And so in between the waves, it would be here and then it would jump to here, 20 miles away in within that wave, that
That's
one.
That's crazy.
And so, somebody could say, well, how do you know that object didn't just disappear and this other one showed up? Well, because they were all doing the same thing, and they would jump, and then they would jump further, and then further, and then so they were kind of going in a path, they were continuing on. So it wasn't. So no, it wasn't that. I not doubt. It's too much.
Yeah, right. You could see the movement. I mean, you could track it. You were tracking. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So just one second, gentlemen. What I am sharing with you right now is a drawing of a UFO that was sighted at the Manor Farm in 1966. If you look down here, you can see that it was Ann Arbor News, March 21st, 1966. The caption read, "How it looked." The drawing of one of the unidentified flying objects reported over Dexter Township last night was made by Sheriff's Corporal David B. Severance from descriptions provided by a half a dozen deputies and area residents. All witnesses generally agreed on the shape and size of the objects and on the colored lights
Yeah.
which appeared on them. Now, this, when I saw the Unsolved Mysteries episode, this drawing immediately popped in mind with the description that the eyewitnesses were giving back, for the episode.
Right. I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think they're one and the same.
It would make sense.
It's really bizarre.
Now was, there's one thing that, I don't know if in that night, if there was just one type of aircraft. It sounded like there was one major one and two minor ones in the way that it looked. Now, I don't know. Well, for one thing, when I tried to replicate what I saw that night, I noticed that aircraft that had been in the same area, and if I did the old grid search, back and forth and going up at the same time and looking for an aircraft, it didn't show an aircraft didn't show as much of a spike. It'd go up a bit, a good bit, 75% of it, but it wouldn't hit the top, not like that night. So what that means is, and basically the further you go away, the less it's going to be, not only because there's less energy, but because the cone goes out further and further. So when my radar, the beam width that it would detect was a half a mile. So it was like it filled up that entire half mile or pretty close to it. And so either it was a craft that was a half mile big somewhere, or there were a few craft in tight formation, and then when people see when it was going crazy, it was going apart and coming together and going apart, coming together. So that would make complete sense in that. And when one other observation was right after that incident, I called air traffic control in Muskegon, which is just on the other side of the airport terminal. And I asked him, I said, I told him what happened. Then I asked him, did you see anything to the south? And he said, well, I didn't see anything on radar, but I did see 3 aircraft in formation. He looked through his binoculars. Now, he didn't see anything on radar, possibly because they didn't have a transponder on them. So, and I think, don't military aircraft have to have a transponder on them?
Yep.
I think so. Yeah.
And they also have to have a, if I remember correctly, IFF. It's called Identify Friend or Foe.
Oh, okay.
Because you don't want to shoot down one of your fellow airmen, miles away, and lock them in radar and send a missile their way for sure. But Barry brings up a couple quick things, and you just kind of discussed it. He said he just watched a video today that said and I'm guessing the UFO, split up into 3 and then went back to 1. And then he says, did they go 3 in a triangle shape and then merge into 1? And Jack, you were just showing, like with your hand, the move that it was doing. It was almost like when they showed it on, and obviously I wasn't there, but when they showed it on Unsolved Mysteries, it looked like they were doing some type of a beacon or a come here kind of a motion, like you would see like lights pointing to, hey, come here, like a runway. You have the outer markers, and you got the lights leading you to the threshold of a runway.
Right.
It seemed like it was something like that, expanding and contracting.
Well, I believe me, I've everything I've watched or everything I've seen and watched on the radar and played the tape over and over again. and other things that I, have watched on documentaries and stuff like that. Um, I wondered, and I tell you, when I think about this, I get a headache. I think about it so hard, like, what could this possibly be? I get a headache, and
Does this, I got to ask, I mean, like my
Yeah.
case was different, but it's really haunted me and I've had some trouble with it just emotionally. I mean, it really,
Yeah.
it destroyed my case was really bizarre. It kind of destroyed my worldview. I mean, how did it did it have any kind of emotional effect on you or?
yeah, oh yeah, it did, but probably not as like it would like a citizen that was seeing it from ground view, because
Yeah.
they're seeing it and they're getting emotional. For one thing, you're worried about safety, and you don't know, so you're scared, or worried, and then you weren't working at the time, but you were, you would have been, it would have been very personal and almost like a violation, because it just came up on you like, like something, just crazy, like this monster jumping out at you. And that's like a violation, whether he touches you or not. So that's going to be traumatic. Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to remember everything about it. Now, in my case, I went in there pretty calm and cool, watched it. And what really jumped out at me and when I got emotional was when I saw the objects lined up along with the radar, which didn't make sense to me. And they weren't vertical triangle formation, but they were pointed like straight down the radar beam from the radar. It was almost like they knew I was looking at it.
That's what I loved when you said that. I mean, you're not a foo-foo kind of guy, but the funny thing is, I don't think I am really naturally either. But I loved it when you said that, because I think these craft have, I mean, it's a different form of, this is something that's going to be way out for you. But my suspicion is they manipulate consciousness. And part of the reason I say that is the morning that I saw this craft, I was driving across an overpass near Flint's Bishop Airport. I was crossing Bristol Road, 5 o'clock in the morning. I saw these brilliant white headlights off in the distance, really low on the horizon. The morning rush had kind of started. It was 5 a.m., so it was thin, but there were cars, right? And when I finally got out about 3 miles south, made a curve, and here's this huge thing, and it was kind of a straightaway leading up to it. This thing is 125 foot in the air. It's probably, I'm thinking it was probably, I looked at that grove of trees recently. It was probably 300 foot. I mean, it looked like something out of the next Star Wars movie. It was right. It was like, you couldn't miss it, right? These lights on the corners were like blinding, and nobody's even hitting their brakes. And so I think they can do things. And I know this is kind of out of your wheelhouse.
They weren't, you don't think,
I think they can do things with consciousness. I think they have stealth at the level of consciousness, which sounds way out. I've never even seen an episode of Star Trek. All right. But I lived this,
well, there's, I've seen the shows, the documentaries where people lose time. They don't remember.
Happened to my coworkers. Happened to two ladies 7 hours before going to another factory.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Crazy, but
yep. Hey, Jack, just so you know, after speaking with you and interviewing you, we had a MUFON investigator get a hold of Michelle and I, and we had these things that we had to do of jotting down notes and make a drawing and things like this, and then talk to them over the phone and give them the information. So what I'm going to show you right now is when you talk about how these things are traumatic and you remember everything about them.
Wait, they contacted you about your sighting, Wayne?
Yes.
Yeah. Finally.
Oh, well, that's huge news.
Wow, yeah, man. I can't believe you haven't mentioned that.
Well, it's because we just finished our interview with Bill Kokleski from the same episode of Unsolved Mysteries that Jack was in. But if you see my notes, I mean, I had so much going on, and just like Michelle did, here's her drawing.
I wondered where my drawing went.
Yeah,
That's
this is Michelle's drawing. Now mine was more of a perspective.
I've seen that exact same craft on a documentary last night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Jack, you said you just mentioned you said the air traffic controller didn't see it on radar but saw it with his own eyes through a binocular.
Yes, yeah, he saw
Oh
it.
my god!
He thought it was 3 aircraft in formation. Now you got to remember he was a good long away, long distance away. Muskegon was 82 kilometers, whatever comes to miles, probably 50 miles from South Haven. That's where I picked it up. Now, a lot of people are kind of confused, and I gotta let you know is that when Holly Graves first saw it and had the police come out, it was at treetop level. The radar would not have been able to pick up anything that far.
Okay.
When it was at
Yeah.
treetop level, what did, and I think she talked about it, but was it a cylinder or a saucer or a triangle or
She
what?
said it was like kind of a cylinder, but kind of ball too.
I think I remember her saying that.
I'd like to get Holly back on here again, but she's the one that said it glowed quite a bit, but underneath all that glow, there was a solid craft, and that's what I wanted to know and make sure that it wasn't some kind of meteorological rare condition where you got some ball of plasma that's, going around. This was actually a nuts and bolts, craft. So
I've got to ask you this. I mean, just for the record, I want to clarify one thing, and I think you'll probably know what my feelings are when I ask you this, but I mean, do you think there's any chance whatsoever that these solid objects that you saw flying around were the product of the U.S. government's advanced military stuff? I'm putting you on the hot seat here, I know, but
I think it's possible, except that, I kind of was looking when I did a little training over at the FAA Air Traffic Control Center in Atlanta, and so they're very strict on airspace, U.S. airspace.
right.
So for anything to be doing crazy maneuvers like I saw it do, would be would make the FAA absolutely PO'd, and especially since it's overpopulated areas, and then you're getting into Chicago O'Hare airspace, which that would just absolutely tick them off. You would hear screaming matches, about it. Now I'm not supposed to give any they told me, I was only there a short time, but they actually say when the boss, before he opened the door, said, anything you see or hear in here, you can't come outside. And I'm like, okay, but so that's that.
Hey,
I
Guy.
want to add. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's what I'll add to that. 1994, we were pretty much getting stealth technology going, but I will say this. Jack says that he thinks it might be possible. I will say it might be possible, but highly improbable.
Well, that's what I think, yeah.
It just the probability of those things and what happened that night, and for 300 people to make a report and not any of them come up with, I mean, most of them said they're not airplanes.
Right.
These things are not airplanes. We didn't have the drones at the time,
And in your case and mine, you've got to be willing to accept the idea that we've got this extraordinarily high-tech stuff that's just beyond. That's number one. And then number two, that when we want to fly this stuff around, right, we fly it really low over like congested urban areas and freeways. I mean, and of course, all the stuff that happened in mine was wacky doodle dandy. But
if you don't have any VFR aircraft out there, general aviation, I can. I mean, still, yeah. I mean, I would like to think that the U.S. government has really high technology. And back in 1994, I was hoping that if we did, we would have seen it come out by now, or at least bits and pieces of it. I would have liked to see, you know, if you remember in Back to the Future, we were supposed to get a little hoverboard by now.
I like that movie. Love that movie.
So, it would have been nice to have that by now. And and another way of, some more advancement in our technology.
Like I said, I struggle particularly with the idea that we have it and this is where we fly it around. I'm like, I don't, I'm like, man, this is it's just, it's crazy. I don't know.
I mean, also we have, I'm sure it was a bit less probably in 1994, but I remember during the interview, you said within the next year they rolled out the Doppler radar.
That's right.
And even more to what you said on the podcast, the Doppler, you wouldn't have been able to manually control the Doppler radar. Like you compared it to analog to digital,
right?
And I thought that was that immediately clicked in my head. I was like, oh, okay, all right. I had no idea about that. But it's like, if the United States government were testing high above top secret military aircraft all the time, you would think you'd get more meteorologists seeing this stuff on radar from time to time over the course of the last 25 years or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
So
I would think so. I don't. When I was training, the radar manual said these are the types to see, and it would be birds and insects and planes. And I thought, oh, planes. So I'm a big plane buff. Let me go see if I can find one. And sure enough, it took me a few minutes, but I did, and I love planes. So I was able to see it and track it. Okay, well, go on to the next step. Now I know I can find planes. Mm-hmm. And that's why when when Ottawa County Dispatch called me and said, can you look at some flying things out there? I knew, that I could. I already knew that I could see aircraft, and I already knew what they looked like. So, and what these things looked like was just like what I saw earlier, only stronger. They looked bigger or stronger. I mean, they had higher. Okay. Meaning that they're either bigger or they were flying in tight formation.
Okay.
Or aircraft was smaller and didn't take up as much as the radar beam, reflection of that. So
wow.
But so it was definitely a bigger aircraft, and you could see as they went further and further south, sure enough, just like aircraft would. The radar returns were getting less and less. So I knew it was an object, and it wouldn't show up like that if it wasn't. That right. It would, the physical sense of that as you get further away.
Yeah, it's retreating.
Coming back would decrease along with it, like any other aircraft. I had all the signatures of aircraft, airplane, jet plane, but it moved at crazy speeds. Nothing we know of can hover at 60,000 feet either,
No.
And there's not enough air density up there.
Right. A helicopter can't do that. It's not no air. I mean,
right.
Not to hold a helicopter.
Yep. So I looked into that. I mean, I looked into all sorts of things over the years. Could it be this? Could it be that? I looked into, Google images of radar returns of certain things of how the military can jam radar, and it didn't look like anything like that, So, no, it everything I saw on the radar matched up with what the people saw, and so all I can say is that ground, that was that was ground truth verified by radar, And that's what these naval folks are saying, is that you got the radar people out on their ships, and then you got your aircraft and jets flying after them. And so what the jet aircraft pilots are seeing is matching up with what the radar is seeing. So.
Although Neil deGrasse Tyson on the Joe Rogan show said that perhaps the eyewitnesses on board the ship plus the radar on the planes, plus the radar on the ships, all went bad at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And he's our
So did their eyeballs.
he's Mr. Science. I mean, I'm like, what is going on here?
He had he's really good for like current. He's not really good for that kind of stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's good for like baking soda and
but I wanted
making an earthquake or something.
I wanted to mention. I saw a couple comments on the bottom from Barry.
Yes.
He mentioned two things. One of them about what Columbus saw. And I think there was like something about Columbus seeing something like a reverse waterfall.
It's in his logs. Yeah.
In his logs. Yes. That was something I was trying to remember earlier. And then also
it is
man, what was the other thing that he just said? It was O'Hara recordings from air traffic control. Yeah. If you guys have never heard those recordings, you should definitely listen to those because those are.
I have heard some. I haven't heard anything but the air traffic controller kind of discounting what the United Airline.
Okay.
Now they said that the way the air traffic control tower was situated, you wouldn't be able to see straight up where this object was, whereas other people in the terminal or in offices. And I remember being an unaccompanied minor in an airline office. They're actually on the ground floor with the same on the floor with the tarmac with the airplane, so people can actually walk out on the tarmac.
Well, they said it. There was a disc and it punched a hole in the cloud, and I've seen the picture of that cloud, and it's just looks like a big donut. I mean,
it's a very big report. Yeah,
something happened. I guess I think.
Well, to punch a big hole in the cloud, I was thinking about that, and it would have to be a drastically different temperature. Now, if it was the same temperature as the ambient temperature, you would have seen swirl of clouds and it would have filled in pretty quickly. But with punch hole, it heated up the clouds or the atmosphere where the clouds were so much that it evaporated that condensation, those water drops, or it froze that area and turned it into ice crystals.
Crystals dropped.
So either way, you would get a punch hole cloud, basically. That's what we call a punch hole cloud, and that's not caused by flying saucers. In this other case, it's a meteorological condition, but that happens. We call it a punch hole. But you saw a punch hole cloud that actually happened because of an aircraft and because the vastly different temperature, either warm or cold, which would do that in
it's great to have a meteorologist on board because I mean there's a great right there that was a great sighting, and there's right there is something that none of us would have been able to clarify. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, it's like lenticular clouds,
right? Yep.
I mean those things, you see them from a distance and man, you think a gigantic flying saucer for sure.
Oh yeah. They're amazing looking. Yeah, it's all due to the mountain, and the way.
All right, well, Jack, I'll tell you what. You've been on here an hour. We've been going 2 hours and 5 minutes, and I think we should probably start wrapping this up. So I do know you've got something special going on tomorrow that you may want to let people know about, and we've also put it up on our Facebook group, but I believe it's with Michigan MUFON tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah,
that's cool.
Do you want to let people know what that is?
Oh, the Mutual UFO Network. Yeah, I'll be talking with them, and thanks to Wayne, I'll be, contacting with them. I'd like to speak with them.
Yeah, so they're gonna do like an interview style with you, I believe, for like an hour or so, right?
Okay. Yeah, I believe so.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, well, Jack, before we start heading out here, is there anything else you want to let us know, let our audience know, and people in the future here that will come along this episode? Anything you want to share?
I'm answering questions that anybody wants to ask me something. Go ahead. I do answer back. Might take me a little while, but I get to you, and I do pay attention to everything you say. So It won't be just like, hey, thanks, that's interesting. No, I actually want to, try to talk about it. So
You've got to be just deluged with. I know because I saw that I went on Facebook and sent you a thing, and I'm thinking,
yeah,
I'm probably one of 8 million people that sent him a thing. Yeah.
I'm getting to you.
Don't worry, you can skip me. I'm a crank. I made it all up.
I talked to this lady all day today, chatted back and forth. So I do pay attention, and I'm taking my time with them. So
Yeah, take your time.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. Nice of you to come on. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Coming on here and let us ask you some questions. And
sure.
Yeah, Jack, awesome. And, it was really thanks to Burton up there in the corner that contacted me as soon as he watched that episode, because
really?
I'm not a big TV watcher.
Either.
Yeah.
So, when my phone starts going off and I see it's from Burton and he's like, "You've got to watch this." And
then
he's
you said to me, "You got to watch this."
Yeah. And then I watch it and I'm sending it to Guy. And I think as soon as I finished that episode, I contacted Burton and was like, "Oh my God, I need to try to get a hold of Jack."
Yep.
And it was like immediately there when I got a hold of you and was able to get you to spare some time with us. And 4 hours later, we had almost a 3-hour long interview.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting stuff, man. Very
So good.
I mean, what other cases are out there that have radar?
Yeah.
With somebody willing to come forward, 300 witnesses, first responders chasing these things down, and 2 pilots that came forward.
Right.
How much more information do people need to understand that? And I'm not saying aliens. I'm not saying, these guys right here.
Well, it's somebody.
But it's somebody or something.
Yeah.
Incredible technology, and I'd love to see it and play with it.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I would recommend that you don't be driving to work at 5 o'clock and have one almost parked on the freeway. As much as you think you'd like to see it.
Yeah.
That can be a little bit. Let's put it this way. I never thought of smoking a cigarette in my life until I was 41. I would look at people who smoked and I would think, who would light that and do that? I'm serious as a heart attack. And it's like, it really, really jangled my nerves. I mean, some people handle it a lot better.
Yeah.
I was too close to this thing. So many odd things happened. And it means it was so important to me. It was 10 days after your deal. And it was great to be able to have that event documented by you primarily so well, so that, I mean, I still feel kind of like the Lone Ranger because my experience was really odd, but it helps. It helps a lot. And I thank you again for
You're welcome.
having the courage to talk about it.
I kind of wonder if it was one of the older guys who I worked with, a lot of Vietnam veterans, and if it was one of them that got the call, I'm wondering if they would have just kind of blew it off and said, our radar can't like that,
Yeah.
I don't think they would really dig into it and do the grid work, but I was one of the young guys and, real whippers.
Yeah. Thank God you did, because and I'll tell you what, man, I mean it very sincerely. I'm not patronizing you for any reason, but thank God that's there for me, because I've struggled with this crazy experience, and it was like 10 days later, and at least I've got those. I went down to the Flint Journal, and I went down to the library 23 years after the fact, and this lady helped me with the microfilm, and I found the transcript of your radar thing. And in fact, the headline on March 18th, I'd never seen the paper, was, "Oh my God, what is this?"
Right. Yeah.
And it, in the Flint Journal, and that was 23 years later. My wife and I drove into Flint, and I said, "Honey, do you care if we stop at the library? And I want to look at the microfilm." And I thought I'll start with the 18th. And even though it obviously did not refer specifically to my experience, I mean, that was like a big deal, and the fact that you took the time, you were honest, Man, it takes some courage to just say, hey, this is what the hell I saw, when everybody's going to think that's wacky, because it helped me. So I appreciate it. Again.
Well, yeah, I'm in the same boat there. I'm sure my coworkers thought I was wacky, and they didn't. They, even though I talked to some or tried to, I don't know if they were even listening, because some still went off with the idea that that I had actually called them, because I saw something on the radar, that I saw a UFO on the radar. I was like, no, I didn't see anything on the radar. I was to look at on the radar that day. No, the police officers asked me to look at the radar. I went and looked at it.
Right.
And I told them while I was being recorded, and I didn't know I was being recorded.
Right, man. I all that stuff really got me. I've said to people that somebody was criticizing you to me, and I said, listen, all this guy did was have the police call him and answer their questions.
Yeah, that's all I did. I answered their questions. I told them exactly what I saw, and then at first I kept putting it off, saying, well, it could be a plane. At first I said, well, okay, I don't see anything down there. Then I said, okay, I see something right there. And then I said, okay, it could be a plane. I see it moving. I can see it moving. I remember this tape word for word. And I don't know how to, I didn't know it was being recorded. I wasn't acting or anything like that, for something.
Were you seeking attention and wanted to get rich and famous? Those are the. I've joked with our host here. I made some YouTube videos and did a bunch of podcasts, and I said, so far I've spent $27 on a T-shirt from your merchandise store, and so I'm $27 in the hole, and that's it.
Yeah. Unsolved Mysteries hasn't given me a dime. I had to pay for
so much for those theories, huh?
Right. And so no, I mean, I after this thing, I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my job living with my mother. I'm in Fort Lauderdale. So and that's what I thought. And so it was the last thing I wanted to get into. And so early in my career, especially when I still had to figure out what office I was going to go to after modernization. I wanted to stay in Michigan, but I didn't think that was going to be possible. But I thought they might put me in like South Dakota or something like that. No offense to South Dakota, but far away. And so
you made the right choice. I played music for 2 weeks in Yankton, South Dakota once years ago. And it's not a place you want to spend, a lot of time. 2 weeks was plenty.
All right.
Michael,
Jack, before we let you go, Burton, was there any last minute things you wanted to say to Jack or ask him before we cut him loose?
Honestly, just thank you so much for giving us some of your time tonight. I mean, the story is amazing, and honestly, you've any question I had, you guys kind of like anyone that I was writing down while everybody was talking, you've kind of already answered. So, I mean, it's an incredible story. It's an incredible experience, and I just thank you so much for giving us all your time between Netflix, the Michigan UFO episode, and now this one. It really means a lot, and it was just an honor to get to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and yeah, I wanted to reiterate, it's free time. I was not being paid for this at all. This was Unsolved Mysteries. They said they would. We drove up, and they said they would reimburse my gas, but I never even put my receipt. And
what a racket! Are you serious?
Yeah,
I figured. I'd heard one time. I think it was Stanton Friedman. Somebody was accusing him of making money, and he said, "Well, I went and got a Screen Actors Guild card, and they give me scale, so I figured you got something for this."
No.
They didn't even pay your gas.
No.
Wow.
Wow, that to me lends. I mean that, and for any in that right there for anybody, then in the future going forward, or has already been on Unsolved Mysteries, that's credibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
right. And that's what I wanted to, but so far I've lost money on this deal. This phone call I made that wants, and she's in Germany. I just paid a $120 charge. Found out today. I was talking to her for maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but yeah, T-Mobile came back and said that'll be $121. So, I'm losing money on this deal. I'm just really interested in what I saw is all, and I'm glad to be able to speak about it.
I had to bring that up because these are some of the tropes that you hear about when people stand up and are honest about these things. They're seeking attention. They want to make money. They want their 15 minutes of fame. Like this is a great thing to be famous for, especially like my case, which is really bizarre.
Either no, and I don't know if I have the respect of my weather service employees, coworkers, friends. So I really
you have the respect of a lot of people. Trust me.
Thanks, appreciate it. Yeah.
Michelle, did you want to jump in?
No, just want to wish, Jack a good night and go spend some time with your wife. It's after 10.
Yeah. I got to do the same thing. So
okay.
Yeah. All right. So, all right, Jack, we're going to say goodbye to you and we'll talk soon.
Sure will. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right, Burton.
Hey.
There's Guy. Thoughts?
the wrong button. I'm technologically challenged.
Well, our surprise guest was definitely a surprise, eh?
Yeah. Well, but I had my fingers crossed because one nice guy, and I really do appreciate so much that he takes the time to talk to people, and it meant a lot to me because my sighting was right in there, and so kooky, and it shook me up so bad. And yeah, it was different than what he saw, I think, but
well, and here's the thing, March of 94, from your experience to the experience that hit the West Coast, and every time that I hear Muskegon, I now remember back to a story, and I don't know how much Wayne paid attention to it. I was talking to my sister-in-law at dinner one evening, and it would have been in the early 60s in Muskegon, that she was probably around 13, 14 years old at the time. And it was like a girl's, slumber party or whatever. And they had went outside, and even she had said, she goes, we saw something in the sky, and it was in Muskegon. So that, tell you.
Yep.
That west side of the state.
All right. Well,
it's crazy over that way. It is. It's a hot spot,
All right. Well,
my wife just said water.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I would like to hear more stories from the folks on this side of the state, any with Lake Huron, Lake Erie, because of Fermi being right on the other side of the water and, in Ohio. That I'm surprised that we don't hear more stories from down here, or, just people aren't talking, I guess.
That's a lot of it.
One thing I'm going to do real quick here is for people that are watching now or may watch this tomorrow, I'm going to go ahead and just put this up on screen here. This is, let me find it.
Michelle, we should maybe like there because I think you think about Michigan, right? When we got the thumb over here, and then obviously all Detroit down here, and then up here though, this is more along where Muskegon and Grand Haven and all that stuff would be. There's not, there's Tawas, but besides that, I don't know if it's as populated.
Tawas is heavily populated now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
really? I haven't been up there in a few years. So.
Yeah, Tawas. Well, and I grew up going up to Tawas and East Tawas and Oscoda and Alpena.
Oh my God, so did I. Yeah.
So that whole area there, because of tourism.
Yeah,
tourism has, I mean, just caused like the overabundance of a lot of, condos on the beach area
Yes.
overlooking Lake Huron.
but
But is it Sandusky Bay? Is that the name of the bay right there? I think
well,
it's
there's
Saginaw
Tawas
Bay.
Bay.
Saginaw Bay.
Oh, okay.
S-
Oh,
um,
yeah, Saginaw. Yeah.
So Saginaw Bay leading up into, Lake Huron,
Mhm.
it would be interesting to hear how many stories are up in that region as well.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned Caseville and Port Austin.
Okay.
So because I
Yeah.
knew back in 94 that there were some stories that came out of that area, and that was at the Thumb.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the counties.
Well,
that was part of one of the counties.
Here's something for you guys to chew on a little bit. Everybody knows I'm a fan of the Younger Dryas impact theory that wiped out and ended the last ice age.
Me too.
Well, guess what they think happened right in that bay area to create the bay?
In the crease part of the thumb.
Yeah. In right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meteorite impact.
Ooh.
There's
Ooh.
evidence that is actually a crater, and they're digging into that, and that's what causes that Thumb Peninsula. They're still looking into that, but I mean, if you think about it, these things are showing up, and look at what some of the revelations about Skinwalker Ranch was. The revelations of Skinwalker Ranch was that whole Uinta Basin there is a crater.
Now,
An impact crater.
Would the let's just hypothesis say for a minute that there is impact crater right there in that part of Michigan. Would that have been before or after the glaciers moved in to make the lakes?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I don't know the timeline.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. But Randall Carlson seems to think that, and some of the other people that he works with, that area of the Thumb is actually an impact crater.
Randall Carlson? Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, man.
Really absolutely. But for people watching, just really quick, here is a screenshot of the Michigan MUFON page, and you can see that tomorrow, November 6th at 7 p.m. via Zoom, they're going to have Jack Bushong on as their special guest. So all the details about being able to attend, it's free. 7 p.m. announcements will be made by Director Bill Konkoleski and field investigator message from Chief Investigator Daniel Snow. Now, Daniel Snow is the one that talked to us and took our report the other day. Cool. And then we had Bill on as a guest, which we'll be releasing next weekend. So, and then the following weekend after that, we're going to do our next After the Cast live. And we're going to take a deep dive into what he has to say, because when you guys hear his stories, it's going to blow your mind.
I knew when you heard Bill's stories, your socks were going to be blown off, man.
Absolutely.
He makes my stories look like, a walk in the park, man.
Yep. So, okay. So last minute thoughts, guys, before I know I keep saying that, but it's such a good conversation to have. And really, I enjoyed these types of roundtables, and, being able to sneak on a guest like Jack and be able to talk to him for like an hour,
cool, man.
just really cool, and something I never thought in my wildest dreams we would be able to do. And, and have fun with this and learn from, kind of a traumatic experience that happened to us as well. Sure. And
it's weird.
It's weird. It really is weird.
Your worldview goes right out the window.
For me, you can't help it.
I mean, for me, it absolutely did. When MUFON tells me about two ladies that are missing for an hour, and then Carolyn and Felicia tell me the same thing. It doesn't leave too much. I'm like, whoa, things are a lot different in this place than I thought they were.
Absolutely, man. It's
That rocks
just
me, man.
it's a crazy world, and it just keeps getting crazier.
Yeah.
And Barry, I agree with you. Randall Carlson's my hero too because of the earth science background. Absolutely
Brilliant guy, man.
love his stuff, and thanks to Joe Rogan, that's when I first heard about him and
Me too.
started digging into this
learned
stuff.
about him on. He did a podcast. There's a podcast called Concrete.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I watched it, man. I was fascinated, man. I was
Yeah,
like,
Concrete's a good one, man. Concrete's a good one. And yeah, it's just, I would love to get him on here. I think he shies away because I've been in contact with him and I've kept on hitting him up wanting to ask him about UFOs, what his thoughts are on UFOs. And maybe he'll see this. And Randall, if you are watching this, I promise we'll stay away from the UFO topic because I know he's trickling out what he thinks and his hypothesis on the UFO thing. I could talk for you still, and Michelle as well. We could talk about Atlantis and pole reversals and all that stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff that we can get into and stay away from the UFOs. Absolutely. So, you have my email, Mr. Carlson, email me. And, cause two of the guys that he is basically partnered with online, Russ and Kyle, are from the Brothers of the Serpent podcast, and they have come on here and they have specifically told me that he wants to come on the podcast. But every time I try to contact him, I think it's the UFO thing. So I promise on my mother's grave that I will not talk UFOs with Randall Carlson unless he wants to.
I was going to say Barry mentioned the Brothers of the Serpent interview of Antonio. Hey, Richie's here. Goosh.
It's Richie from Goof On. Hey, man.
I saw that guy. I heard that guy. It was fun.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
I still should have you on my channel because for reasons I will never understand, I've gained something like 11 or 12 subscribers in 5 days or some crazy thing. I've got and I think, my channel's just not that interesting. I don't understand it at all.
Well,
I think I was one of them, honestly.
Seriously?
I think so.
Well,
right.
I will.
Now I'm finding it's my family and, basically, my family and my friends that are poor guy. We better sign up.
No, I'll tell you, Guy, one of our most downloaded episodes, I want to say you're in episode 4, believe it or not, is probably our 3rd or 4th ranked downloaded episode. Our episode 0 is close to number 1 at this point.
Right.
We have Johanna James talking about Egypt and pyramids and all that. And then we had Ben Van Kerkwick from Uncharted X, who's been on Concrete and all those shows as well. He was a guest of ours. And those are our highest downloaded episodes for now. Now on YouTube,
but I'm not
audio,
last place, so I feel good.
On YouTube, our most watched interview is almost at 1,300, and that's the Chris Lato interview from the UAP Society, the former F-16 pilot. So, but Richie, great seeing you here, man. We just had Jack on, and so yeah, Cosmographia. Yep. That's Randall Carlson's podcast. Yep, Cosmographia, great guy, and I hope to talk to him. And man, I wish he had a book. I swear I would buy a couple copies just to go through it. Fascinating.
You'd be a fascinating guest, man.
Absolutely. I'm trying, man. The people that we have on this podcast show up and come to our podcast exactly when they're supposed to. So when the time is right, we'll get Randall on here and we'll have that conversation, because it was bad enough with Jack and I talking for an hour before we even started the interview with everything we had in common. But as an earth science guy and somebody who's into the different ice ages and extinction level events and things like that I am, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Yeah. And Barry brings up something too, just really quick. Barry says Brothers of the Serpent is doing a verbal reading of the path to the pole right now. Yeah, exactly. What they do is a like a book report over like many episodes, which is really cool. They did one about I want to say the Egyptian power plant hypothesis by Chris Dunn.
Yeah, like audible books or something. Right?
Yeah, what they do is our forbidden archaeology is another one, which is fascinating.
That's Graham Hancock, right?
No, the forbidden archaeology is Michael Cretan.
Okay.
Something like that. It's a huge book, and what they did is they went through the like the smaller version. The book itself is like almost 1,000 pages, and the condensed version's like 300. So that's the one that they went through. It's just they are great. Kyle and Russ are amazingly talented. They're farmers. They make their own wines. They're down in Texas, and what a great bunch of guys. Gufan says,
Technology of the gods.
I was listening at the gym. I just got done and was able to say hello. Great show. Thanks, Richie. We appreciate it, man. You're awesome.
Hello.
You are awesome. And then he went on to say, Technology of the Gods is the other guy. Yeah. There's Chariot of the Gods.
That's what I was. Okay.
Yeah,
there we go.
That's Von Donegan, I believe. See, when you get forced into this stuff and you take all of this stuff in, it all blurs together. It's like being a teacher. Every day is Monday, Tuesday. You don't know the days.
You just know the bands and why.
I specifically held back on listening to the episode that we were gonna. I had no idea he was gonna be on the episode tonight going in.
Good,
but like up to today for the I think I had to split it up between yesterday and today. But that your guys's was the only podcast. Normally I listen to 2 to 3 podcasts a day, but like that was the only ones I listened to because I wanted it all fresh in my head. Yeah, so it didn't get all jumbled up with other stuff.
I listened a while ago, which was probably not smart.
Guy had a secret backstage view. I sent Guy the edited interview as soon as I had it done. I sent it to him.
That's cool, man.
Nice.
Yeah,
I saved it. I've got it on a hard drive, and it says I renamed it pre-release.
There you go.
I've never felt real special, but now I do.
That's metal.
So Burton, you're next on the list, man. With the next one, I'll give you that the edited interview with nothing else attached to it.
That was fun. Hey, you can send those to me too. I love those. I'm real interested to hear Bill Konkoleski because I know he blew your socks off, and man, he's a straight shooter, man. His stuff is real, and being around him, like I said, makes me feel like nothing happened to me, and but he's good. That should be man. If your listeners, if you enjoy this show, you want to listen to that show, man.
Yeah, that'll be coming out next weekend. So, yep, we got to finish that one up and get it ready for release. But yeah, man, just a great interview. I figured I would maybe have him on for about an hour, figuring he's busy and stuff. And I said,
always do that.
I know. Well, and I asked him, I said, how long do you have? And Bill says, well, what are you thinking? I said, well, about an hour, maybe an hour and a half is generally on average what we do. He goes, oh yeah, that'll be fine. But 10 o'clock has to be my main cutoff, my hard cutoff. It was 7 o'clock when we started. I was like, oh my God, 3 hours again.
Oh man.
No, we didn't go that long. So
I've done a ton of interviews where it was like, okay, I do you guys have a hard cutoff? No. All right. Well, I'll just try to keep you for an hour. They're like, yeah, an hour is about all I got. And then we get to an hour and I'm like, I start kind of wrapping up. And they're like, nope, never mind. Let's keep going. It's
Yeah.
great. Sometimes it's the art of the podcast. That's what I call it. That's the art of the podcast.
And that's what the beauty of a podcast,
Going with the flow.
because it's not like you don't have the constraints of, media that we've in days gone by, where there's so many commercials and it's got to fit into this thing, and it's got a certain intro and an outro. This thing is more, it's organic.
Yep.
And that's what I like about podcasts,
That's
is
what people-
because maybe it might go an hour and you might have covered everything you feel you need to. But if you want to go 3 hours, you can do it.
Yep.
And I've listened to a lot of 3-hour podcasts, man.
Yep.
So,
It's great.
Yeah. And when we first got Jack on here, that was one of the questions that we were talking on the phone about. He's like, do people like podcasts? I was like, absolutely they do.
I love 'em.
And they love the long form conversations of, just people talking. I mean, Joe Rogan has proved it millions and millions of dollars over.
exactly, man.
So it's like,
And thousands and thousands of episodes over.
oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing. I don't know how he does it. But I guess when that's all you do, you can really, set your mind to it and stuff. But all right. Oh, and Richie says, sweet, can't wait. All right, man. Well, Richie, maybe we'll get you on here for one of the round tables doing a deep dive and get you to come on and talk with us and, critique the episode and maybe grab some secret guest and have them come on.
Yeah.
Now, one person who I know is watching this and not saying much, well, at least I believe she is Cindy Pravda from the episode as well.
Yeah.
I've been talking to her and invited her to come and watch, and I haven't heard anything else from her, but
It would have
this
been,
is a
it
big
might have been
deal.
cool if you could add her almost instead of me or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, Guy, with your experience in '94, the same month and stuff, it was a no-brainer for me to get you on here
I
to
appreciate
talk.
it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And you helped us, you say a lot of good things about Michelle and I doing this. And,
True.
honestly, you helped us kick off our interviews and where we were going to go with the podcast and stuff. So, and helping some people too.
Help me.
I mean, let's not forget the underlying mission here is to have people come on and be able to tell their stories and look for people that have the same experiences, so they do not feel, as you say many times, Guy, that lonely feeling of,
Man, it's horrible.
being
for
out
me, it's
there.
horrible. It still is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go to a therapist, man. I mean, I went out for ostensibly the reason I went. I had a heart attack and I was a little depressed. And Linda was a social worker, and you need to talk to somebody. I'm like, okay, I'll go to a therapist. But what happened was, third session in, I started talking this UFO stuff. I start crying, and I talked to the guy for 5 years because I just need somebody to listen to this that can confirm, I'm neurotic, but I'm not schizophrenic or I needed to get it out, man. It kind of messed me up, and I feel like a weak stick. I mean, I know like Bill Konkoleski has had, what kind of experiences he's had.
Yeah.
And he deals with it really, really well. Of course, it started when he was like 2 or 3. So but anyway.
And people, you're gonna find out when we talk to him next week. So, well, we already did talk to him, but when we release the episode,
where's my I want my pre-release copy. I gave you the Gmail access. I want to find it in my little box.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, Burton, Guy, it's been great having you on.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move you guys backstage. Thank you for coming on for this, and I really appreciate it for our first official named live show, right? After the cast live, meaning after the podcast, and we're going to talk live about it. So
what is the name of Burton's podcast again?
He's got 2 of them. It's Lost in the Dark and Follow the Reaper. Now, Follow the Reaper, Burton, I wanted you at the end here to let people know what's going on. And
I just started it with heavy influence from Wayne, and it's called Follow the Reaper Podcast, and it's where I would like people to send me you can do a voice memo on your phone, that simple, and just tell me your true first or second hand paranormal encounter of any kind, whether it be UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, Dogman, everything. And you can send that to me on I'm very active on I'm the only one doing it. So if you send it to any of this, you're sending it right to me. It's Follow the Reaper Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or Follow the Reaper Podcast at gmail.com. And you can reach me through any of those channels anytime. I also host Lost in the Dark podcast where we talk to heavy metal bands. And it's mostly about music and stuff like that. But Follow the Reaper is all paranormal. We've had some great submissions. Wayne submitted one fantastic ghost story that's already been aired. I think I'm only on episode like 7 is coming out next week, so it's just starting. It's brand new, and I could really, really use anyone's ghost stories or paranormal stories of any kind. I'd love some cryptid stories, or
I've got
UFO
a secondhand one for you, man, and you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it, and
All right.
It's a totally bizarre. I just thought, man, I've got something you're gonna dig, man.
Please, yes.
What do you call in or something? You said.
If you want, just like you could either just like type it out to me and I'll narrate it, but I prefer it to be from the person's voice. So just take a voice memo on your phone and email it to me.
Just a cool story. I think you'll find it really. It's a buddy of mine. It's his brother who's an attorney. They're not crazy people at all, and man, it is wild.
Well, that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic.
Well, all right, so there you go. So it's Follow the Reaper
Podcast
at gmail.com.
It's like dark pillow talk.
Yeah.
Seriously, because Wayne sent me the
voice,
episode, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, this is like pillow talk, but dark stuff.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and I will yeah, absolutely. And I will be in touch with you guys.
All right, you guys. See you later. Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. Take care, guys.
Everyone.
All right, Michelle, what do you think of our first live show? Almost 3 hours.
Oh, I think that we need to consider going camping on the west side of the state.
Yeah, March is coming. And I'm going to be out there. I'm going to tell you. We got to get out there.
All right.
All right. Well, Michelle, I think it's time for us to get going.
It's time to call the night, folks.
All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and end this live broadcast. I don't have any cool video or anything, an outro to play for you guys just yet, but that'll be coming soon in the future. So for now, always remember, keep those eyes to the sky.